Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. But before I get started, I do have an announcement that next week, Monday, will be the launch of the Father Like Daughter issue 7, so issues 1 through 7 Kickstarter. It's my comic that I wrote. It's about a high school girl. Father left her to become a full-time superhero. Everyone in the world loves him except for her, and then she inherits his abilities. So the reason I mention this now is because we do have the pre-launch page available, and I have 48 hours of a early bird special, so you can get some major discounts if you back it up. So definitely follow the page so you're alerted when the campaign goes live, because by the next episode of Best Comics of the Week, I believe those discounts will be pretty much gone. So I wanted to make sure you guys have an opportunity to follow it. Now, of course, also by the end of the video, I'll announce your guys' pick of the week from last week, and let me know in the comments below what was your pick of the week for this week as well. I've been really enjoying the segment. Another thing is I'm going to hopefully do a topic video this week, but nothing really jumped out at me from the comics. Usually I have some sort of idea of what I want to do, but let me know in the comments if there is a topic you would like me to discuss from this week's comics or this week's comic book news. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Now, getting into the episode. We have 12 comics, so a pretty average amount of comics for me. And number 12 is XMen issue 14. Exoswords has kind of been a middle ground event for me. There's certain issues that I've been enjoying, but nothing has really wowed me from this event, and I don't know if I'm in the minority for this one. I definitely don't think it needed to be 22 parts. It's a very long event, and I think a lot of stories are very expanded because of it. This one is very exposition heavy about Apocalypse's past, his not origins, but kind of more of his world of things and how that's connected to Krakoa. By the end, I was interested in his relationship with his love interest. Let me see her name. Genesis. I enjoyed that aspect, but it was really just the opener of the book and then the end of the book and it was over. I'm like, if they focused on their love or their connection, I feel like it could have been a stronger issue. There was just no emotional pull for me here. It was just a lot of info dump in this issue. Artwork, as always, has been pretty good for this one. I believe, Yu is still on this book. I don't know if we're having more issues, and I'm curious to see the direction of the artwork after he leaves, but I enjoy the art, and it kind of fits for the exposition of the book, but still didn't really like the exposition, so giving this one 2 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11. This is continuing the cancellations of DC Comics books and a lot of books that I read. This is the last issue of Young Justice, issue 20, which is a book that I wanted to really like. I like these characters a lot. I like the Young Justice franchise, but it never really felt like it was going anywhere. And this finale really felt that way, where it kind of felt like it was taking a lot of influence from the cartoon. There's even an episode of the cartoon where they go up against Red Tornado. That's kind of what happens in this issue. They find the island. This is their new home. This is like their Titan's Tower, and they go up against Red Tornado. We get a little bit from Teen Lantern and John Stewart, but it all feels kind of too late. This should have been in issue 2 of Young Justice, not the finale of Young Justice. I'm like, okay, where was this before? And it just feels very crowded, doesn't have much of a direction for the book, and you really felt that for the finale, and I just felt pretty underwhelmed for this book. Artwork is pretty solid overall. It's been pretty consistent for the most part, and didn't feel as crowded in the visuals as it has and also could have with so many characters. So visually it looked okay, but definitely dialogue-wise, there was just a lot going on. So Young Justice issue 20 gets 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10. I am so sad to see this low, and I have not been liking this arc. That is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 51 LR. So I'll say this in every episode. I don't know why we have LR issues, and next week we actually have 2 Amazing Spider-Man issues, so that kind of confuses me how that ended up happening with the release schedule. But with this issue, there's little things I enjoyed. I like the Mary Jane stuff, even if the lettering was really off. just the yellow, I think it was yellow text in red boxes. No, it was black text in red boxes. It was really hard to read, honestly. But I liked where it ended up. I liked that MJ was trying to head to Peter, and then it's Norman meeting up with MJ, which we knew that direction was going to happen because that was revealed in the last issue. So it wasn't new information, but I'm like, okay, this is at least an interesting dynamic. Then we have Black Cat return. I feel like she's just kind of standing there. I'm like, oh, it's cool to see her, but there wasn't much there. We still have the spider people being controlled, and I'm like, okay, I'm not interested in that. And then Sin Eater is still around, and I'm like, I'm really not interested in him. And then the cliffhanger is just so random with vampire dude, what's his name? Morphin popping up. And I'm like, really? Morphin? Okay. So, yeah, it just kind of felt like a random issue, not a lot of progression at all. Artwork, I like the style, but a lot of it felt rushed, so I was overall just disappointed. I did enjoy the Mary Jane scenes, but not enough for me to recommend the issue. So the Amazing Spider-Man issue 51.RLR is, I give that 2.5 stars, and that is number 10, I believe. Alright, moving on to number 9, and that is Captain Marvel issue 23. Another arc that I haven't been loving, but I've been really enjoying this series. I really don't feel like there's been too many hiccups with it. But yeah, just not really into the Captain Marvel, the end world, but it is fun to see the future members of, I guess, the Marvel Universe. So seeing Jerry Drew, Danny Cage, that was cool. I liked some of the interactions between Emma Frost and Captain Marvel. And then you kind of get this weird cliffhanger with Namor having this kind of almost Krakoa feeling Atlantis at the bottom of the ocean. That was interesting. But overall, again, not as invested in the actual plot or story of the issue, but the character moments make this enough for recommendation. Also, the artwork is always pretty solid for this book. So, Captain Marvel issue 23 gets 3 stars, and that is number 9. Alright, moving on to number 8, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer issue 19. Now, Buffy has been a weird book for me because, obviously I'm still reading it. I think there's some stuff that grabbed me. I enjoyed the Robin and Buffy stuff. They were going to take the next step in their relationship, and you thought that was the cliffhanger of the issue, and you thought they would just change kind of the mythos of what happened with Angel and Buffy in the show, but they end up not going through with it, and that makes their relationship rocky, and I thought that was a really interesting tidbit. But then there's the rest where I feel like it doesn't feel quite earned. A lot of the Willow and Xander stuff feel very rushed to me, and this whole book feels rushed to me, and that goes into the cliffhanger of the issue where Faith just shows up. I'm like, but we're still dealing with Kendra. We're dealing with all these other characters. Why are we throwing in Faith just because she has a name? And that's kind of been my bigger issue of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, is that it relies so much on the fans' enjoyment and fandom towards certain characters or storylines that it doesn't really ever feel earned within its own storyline, within its own mythos. So that's something I hope doesn't continue, and we get to see some more deeper storylines with these characters. But so far, I just feel like there's just been a lot thrown onto the wall and seeing what sticks. Also, artwork is been just okay. There's been a lot of different artists on this book. I feel like I wish there was a more consistent artist, and this artist in particular definitely wasn't bad, just wasn't as detailed as we've seen in the past, and more, I guess, lifelike as we've seen in the past, looking like the characters from the show. So not my favorite art style, but, fits for the most part. I just wish this book could be a bit more consistent. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer gets 3 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Marauders, issue 14. This has been my favorite of the X of Swords tie-in books. I really think Jerry Dugan does a good job at character beats, and that's something I feel like that's been missing with X of Swords, is so much about the mythos, so much about let's collect this sword, that we haven't really had the time of like these characters interacting with each other, especially the Hunger Games aspect of it all, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're at the point where they're getting their clothes ready and they're gonna get into that circle and start fighting each other. And then I do think this issue was really slowed down, and again, I don't know if this event needed to be 22 parts, and these are the type of issues we see that with, but at least we're getting some character moments, like Wolverine slashing, what's her name from, let me see her name, the girl always looks like Emma, Saturn. He slices and dices her at the end, and you're like, will she survive? Because the rules of Krakoa are not in your favor in this X of Swords event, so whoever dies, dies. Curious how that's going to end. What consequences will come? We get some good moments between Storm figuring out that she's like the bringer of death. So there's some good character moments overall, which is why it's higher. Also, the artwork is pretty good too. There's times where it's not as detailed, especially when there's a lot going on in a panel. But overall, facial expressions are good, and I like the style for the artwork. So giving this one 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Batman issue 102, and I got that stock card, I think these are called. And this is Ghostmaker. I don't think this is his first appearance, but it's like his more full appearance. And I mean, I'm kind of like on the fence of, do we need all these new Batman characters before we fully flesh out the other new Batman characters, like Punchline, who I definitely think needs to be fleshed out a bit more. I do think she's a good character, but I want to see more of her. Clown Hunter, even though I think Clown Hunter is going to be tied into this Ghostmaker story, and now we got Ghostmaker. So there's a lot of new characters, but I thought it was a pretty good introduction to Ghostmaker. He has this connection to Bruce's past. He's, I guess, good at swords as well, and that should be interesting. The stuff that I also enjoyed was definitely Oracle working with Batman, felt very classic, but also kind of having the opportunity that she could still be Batgirl. I think that's kind of the best place you could have for Barbara. Certain stories she'll be Batgirl, certain stories you could use her as Oracle. I think that really makes every fan happy, so let's hope they go that direction. We get a little bit of Harley in this issue as well. She is fun. She's just trying to get an apartment. That's pretty much it that happens with her, but at least it was fun. So it was a good setup overall. I didn't like that there was 2 artists though. You could definitely see the difference between the artist that did the first part of the issue and then up to the Harley section and after. Felt very, very more anime-ish, which I don't think really fit the style of the book, so that was a little disappointing. But overall, I like the artwork for the beginning of the issue a lot, and hopefully we stay consistent with the next issue. I don't know why we had the filler artists, but those aren't always my favorite with the issues. Overall, for the issue, I'm giving this 3.5 stars. I definitely was entertained with it. I enjoyed the dynamic between Oracle and Batman, but still not really wowed with the arc yet. Don't know if we needed this arc right after Joker War. We'll see how things go. So giving that number 6, and like I said, 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 5, a new book from Boom Studios, kind of, and that is Mighty Morphin issue 1. Next week, we have Power Rangers issue 1 that's going to be focusing on the Omega Rangers from what it seems like. And this focuses on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now, the question is this new reader friendly? Now, it's hard to tell because I've been reading Power Rangers since the beginning on a monthly basis. So, honestly, I don't think it's new reader friendly. I do think it does enough to hopefully get you into what's been going on, but you definitely need some sort of background in Power Rangers and maybe a little bit of what happened in Shattered Grid. So I don't know if this needed to be in issue 1, but still a really good continuation. There's definitely a lot of moments that make it for a good premiere, even if it's like a second volume. So with this issue, we get to see a new Green Ranger, and we don't know who it is. In the last issue, I thought they were really leaning towards it was going to be Lord Draken, and it's proven that's not Lord Draken. Maybe this guy's on their team or on their side, so I'm curious to see that mystery. And then we do get to see a bit from Zordon's past, some connections to Zordon past, where we actually get a cliffhanger with one of Bulk and Skull's, I guess it's Skull's girlfriend and Bulk's not really friend, where she's connected to all that. So I like that we're building this mythos that we haven't seen obviously in the show and only a little bit in the comics. So I thought that was cool. And how's that going to be connected to the new Green Ranger? We get some shining moments with the supporting characters, not really interacting with each other as much, more of just like getting a little bit of their personalities, I guess, if you haven't read the book in a long time. So I like those moments. I thought those were pretty good. But yeah, overall, I think there were some good big moments to get me personally as a Power Rangers fan excited for issue 2, but I don't know if there's enough wow moments for, this big issue 1 and to relaunch the book. I don't know if that really happened for this issue, but excited to see what they're going to do with Power Rangers, and that's how that's going to be connected and what side of the story that's going to tell. So Mighty Morphin issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. I should also mention artwork. Pencils were pretty good for this. I enjoy the cartoony nature, but I did think the coloring was a bit bright, and that was a little distracting throughout the issue. So that wasn't my complete favorite palette, but I overall like the visuals for the book. Not what we've seen in the past. I do think we've gotten stronger artists on this book, but excited to see what direction they'll go with the visuals for this one. And also, if it's going to be different in Power Rangers, what that style is going to be in next week's book. So moving on to number 4. Again, I gave that 3.5 stars. That is number 5. Number 4 for me, this actually went a lot higher, and that is Batman: The Avengers Continue, issue 6. I enjoyed this issue because it dived into Jason Todd's origins that is connected to this universe of Batman, where how did Jason Todd become Red Hood, how the death in the family storyline kind of ties in here, and why Batman feels so much regret. And then we have Jason Todd show up in the end, like kidnapping Tim Drake, and also kind of poking fun that Tim Drake in the cartoon was Tim Drake, but then also kind of a mix of Jason Todd's past. So how do you have Jason Todd exist and this version of Tim Drake exist in the same universe, same comic? So that was cool. Artwork is still a little basic, but it does the job, has the style of what you want for Batman the Anime series. I will say it was a little bit of a slow start. At first I was like, oh man, we already know Red Hood. Why do we keep doing these past adventures? But then we get to the moment of, oh, now it's the creation of Red Hood. Now we're really getting into like the deeper storytelling, the deeper relationship between Batman and Red Hood. So I like that portion, and it really picked up for me for the middle of the issue. So giving this 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. All right, moving on to number 3, a book I've been loving, and it's been such a surprise for me because I really have never liked a volume for this character, and I'm really happy because I've always wanted to like a volume for this character. I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. It is Black Widow, issue 3. I love this book. I think Kelly Thompson's doing a phenomenal job, and the pacing's pretty good for it too. So we get to see Black Widow still living this happy life, and she's starting to realize, oh, this doesn't make any sense, and her instincts as a spy start to kick in front of her family, and we find out that son is hers. So I'm curious how they're gonna mesh this new life with her almost husband, with her child, and now that they kind of all figure out that she has a past and something is up. And there's some really, really great double page spreads here of just action sequences, seeing her past. The artwork is phenomenal for this book, and overall I've been, again, just so pleasantly surprised with this one. It's an easy pickup if you've never read Black Widow before, but at the same time I think it gives you enough if you know this is your favorite character. I think it also dives into her past, does something different. I also like where the villains are being placed in this issue as well. There's a lot of villains saying, let's kill her off, let's not kill her off, let's take her off the board. What the hell do we do with this character who keeps, coming back to life? Like, I like that we're unraveling their plans a bit and why they did this to her, and the choices she's gonna have to make when she realizes this is all fake, and kind of not fake because that's actually her kid. So what's gonna happen to this more suburban lifestyle she has? Will she want to keep it even when she realizes she's Black Widow? And that's the stuff I'm really curious about. And yeah, really good issue, solid stuff. Black Widow issue 3 gets 4 stars, and that's number 3. Moving on to number 2, a book that has also been phenomenal every issue. I've been loving it, and that is Firepower issue 5. This is another great issue. This I've been super surprised by the pacing, especially for a Robert Kirkman book, which kind of tends to take the slower route in things. So it was really cool to see Firepower really have some good pacing. I think other books would take like 10 issues for the kids to find out and kind of be in the mix of it, but it's issue 5 and they realize their parents don't have a normal past, and they get to unravel a bit about their past. There's some phenomenal action for this issue, a lot of good martial arts, and we're digging deeper into the past, we're digging deeper into these villains, and I just thought it was a really good A to B issue that gets me excited for the next chapter overall, and just a really good marriage between writer and artist and colorist and really the whole creative team. So really enjoyed this issue. Firepower issue 5 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 2. Number 1, my pick of the week. And again, would love to hear your pick of the weeks in the comments as well. But mine was an easy one. The hype was real. And that is Crossover issue 1. So this book has been hyped up for, I would say, months. Like, since it's been announced, it's like Donny Cates, he's got a new Image book. It's called Crossovers. It's gonna blow your mind. And, I like going into any book, but really indie books especially, knowing the title, knowing the creator, and not really knowing much else. I feel like that's when I'm as pleasantly surprised as I have been, especially in the past couple of months. I think there's been some really good indie books that I just didn't know anything about, and I loved it. Like Scumbag was a good example of that, and now Crossover. Stillwater was another good example of that. So with this book, it's extremely meta, extremely existentialist, and those are all the things I really enjoy. So we get to see this world where, first of all, the opener of this book, let me just say, the opener is this monologue saying, hey, I know you probably think you're important, but let me ask you a question. Who do you think is more important? Or, I want to use the right word here. Who's more remembered? Who's more real? That was the comment. Who's more real, us or Superman? It's like, well, of course, I'm a person, so, me. And they're like, no, it's probably Superman, because, you'll live your life and you'll have your tale, but then it'll be over. And then Superman will always live on no matter what. And you definitely scratch your head on that. I'm like, man, that's some existential monologue there. And then you get thrown into this world where you find out superheroes and comic books are thrusted into our world. They become real, and they become villainized. Storytelling becomes villainized because of what they did. And there's this big event, and obviously it's not something that just sells comics. It ends up destroying a lot of people and destroying a lot of lives, and that's the story. And there's still consequences and characters that are living within this world since that event. So people hate these comic characters, right? And the only sacred place is the comic book store. And some people that still enjoy comics, still enjoy storytelling, and just the way this issue unravels, where we get to see our main character, who we quite don't know what her deal is. It feels like she has one foot in that comic book world, but she doesn't have the dots. So curious what her role is going to be. And then you have this priest and his son. We find out the son and her are going to end up together. But how? They have such different viewpoints. They don't even interact in this issue. So how does that love story happen? And what's important, right? Is it these characters, these real characters that are showcased in this issue? Or is it the fiction aspect to it? So again, it goes into this really metaphorical storytelling, which I just absolutely loved. And I think I love comics where you could read it one time and be like, oh, I'm going to read it a second time, and I'm going to get something completely different from that. And I'm going to pick up on things that I didn't pick up on from the first one. I think this is a book to analyze, and it was so good. It just hit every beat, and it was not conventional by any means, and that's what I liked about it. And it really, I think, challenges comic book readers to say, well, why do we like comics? Why is storytelling important? I think there's always this question, it's like, oh, well, it's fiction, who cares? So I think it kind of tests that question of, why do you care anyways, right? Like, why do we care about fiction? Why do we care about these characters? Why do we love comics? And I love that. I love that commentary, and I'm so curious what the rest of the book is going to tell with that. So I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. My pick of the week. So giving that one 4.5 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic and O. Definitely follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her Dancer. Definitely check that all out. Now, before I leave and head out, I do want to announce the pick of the week from last week, which was, drumroll, Batman 3 Jokers, issue 3. So you guys agreed with me on my pick of the week from last week, and here are some comments from that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and again, one more reminder, go put out your pick of the weeks in the comments below, and hopefully you have a chance to check out my Kickstarter for Like Father, Like Daughter. Thanks, guys.